Okay, today we're going to take a look at a deck called the Brady Tarot. Now, this is a deck that I have admired from afar. I think it's an absolutely stunning deck. It's an animal-based deck. It ticks a lot of the boxes for me personally, but it is not a deck that I decided to purchase because it has keywords on the bottom that are and the sword suit is very much in the alignment of heavily Rider-Waite-Smith, and not in a way that felt like I could really work it into the way that I see the numbers versus the suit. So this was not a deck that I purchased or had any intention of purchasing, and this is actually a mix. So this was sent to me by somebody who already had the first edition. The second edition came out, and I believe this is the second edition box, but it is because they must have liked the first edition box, but it is the first edition card. So just be aware that this is kind of a mishmash. And I greatly appreciate them sending this to me to check out. And I'm really excited to look at it. Again, the artwork on this is so stunning. It's so beautiful. So it's just one of those things. But again, you're seeing a mix. So this isn't the be forewarned. I believe, do your due diligence. If you're going to purchase this deck, go look to the website and see what the box is that it comes with it and all of that kind of stuff, because you are going to, this is kind of a bit of a mishmash here in that way. There is a great guidebook here which I am looking forward to diving into, and I'm also going to try to just allow this to be what it is. I'm going to talk a little bit when we get to the sword suit, because that's the problem suit for me in this deck, but that is not a negative, right? The majority of the people who are watching this video work within the Rider-Waite-Smith system, and so if you do, the swords are primarily negative. This is because Arthur Waite pulled a lot of his minor descriptions or definitions straight from playing card divination, and so in playing card divination the spades are all negative. Now the balance to that is that the hearts are all positive, the diamonds are all neutral positive, and the clubs are neutral negative, and so you have an actually perfectly balanced deck in the playing card divination. But when you kind of piecemeal and pick a few things from different places, sometimes, in my opinion, that ends up being something that isn't extremely balanced. So that's the reason why I don't personally read that way. I learned to read, I had a deck that was loosely based off the Rider-Waite-Smith for like 9.5 to 10 years, but the book that I used was a Marseille book, and I also was coming from playing card divination, so numbers play heavily for me in the minors. It's the number plus that suit, and what that might, how I might interpret those things together. So nothing wrong with Rider-Waite-Smith. It is a system, one of many systems of reading tarot. And most of you, I believe, that watch this are going to be people who buy decks in the Rider-Waite-Smith system and work within the Rider-Waite-Smith system. And so that does not make this a negative. It's just whether or not I would use the deck is there. So I just want to be clear about that. Absolutely gorgeous. This is my favorite, probably all-time favorite gilding, is when it's that matte kind of gold edging. It is, that to me is like nothing can really beat that, other than a good matte black like we saw with the new edition of the Goliath. That's about perfection for me, to be honest. This would be in terms of brighter gilding like gold or silver. This is perfection. So absolutely gorgeous. I love the backs. Could do without the white border because it is such a earthy tones, but it goes with the front side, which has like a border and then that white border, so they do match, which I do love that. That aesthetics are there quite well. Let's take a peek at the guidebook before we look at the cards. I think it's really going to be hard for you to see. There we go. It's like a matte guidebook with the beautiful gloss relief. So it's all black, but when you can, the same thing with the box. Again, this is not, so I'm guessing this is probably the second edition guidebook. Let's see. Brady Tarot. Oh, it's by Rachel Pollack. I did not know that. Artist Statement by Emmy Brody. I love it. This is a tool, not a weapon. This is a conversation, not a commandment. Oh, I love that. The Brady Tarot is a suit of 79 hand-colored lino cuts I created over 18 months between 2017 and 18. I carved each image by hand, printed the carved blocks onto paper, and then hand-colored those with gouache. The major arcana was created first, followed by the minors. To keep the project spontaneous, I used rolled dice, oh I love that, to determine which images I would carve next. I found this method had a very similar voice to the tarot. The cards I rolled were often relevant to what was going on in my life, and I would frequently roll the card I was thinking about. Love that. This deck is a testimony to biodiversity and a call to protect it. It is an invitation to view the brutal and beautiful aspects of reality with equal enthusiasm. It is a tribute to the people, capital P, who care for and learn from the land of North America, and is an attempt to honor the lessons and stories they passed on for millennia. It is a reminder to listen and trust. I love that. Okay, hello to Emmy Brody, or Brady, I'm sorry, I can't read because I have no glasses on. And it's the Brady Tarot, duh. You know, you just kind of want to stand up and give her an ovation. I love that. Artist tips for use. They so shall I say the structure mirrors a Smith-Waite tradition and can be easily interpreted if the reader is familiar with that model. The card's colored borders are elementally coded. Oh, I love that. Okay, we'll take a look there. Which is helpful feature for translating the suits. The wand's fire became feathers, and the borders have red triangles. The use of feathers by many Native American people can be somewhat analogous to wands in European tradition. Feathers are also used to guide smoke in ceremony, further connecting feathers to fire. That makes sense. I think, you know, it's good that she put this because you do think about feathers with the air suit. Cups become horns. Again, that makes sense. Swords become arrows, which makes sense to me. And coins become roots, which again makes sense. So I like that she explained that, because I would have probably been like, I would have thought feathers for air, but it certainly makes sense with the smudging. It's gorgeous. So yeah. Wonderful. So I like that opening there. So let's see. Starts with the major arcana. And so then for each of the cards in the majors, it looks like you're getting 2 pages. You're getting some information here. It looks like it's descriptive of the card, which I love. And let's just take a peek over here to the minors. Same thing. It looks like you get 2 pages sometimes with a little beautiful artwork there. So I love that. Okay. I love that it looks like, let's just do the Fool here. I know I got to turn my phone off, but I don't want to put this down. Let's take a look at the Fool. So it has 0, the Fool, beginnings, first steps, especially those taken instinctively without research or planning, the flow of energy beyond morality or teachings. A brown-headed cowbird chick, I love that it names what kind of animal it is, inhabits the nest of an indigo bunting. Like the European cuckoo, cowbirds are brood parasites, meaning that they lay their eggs in the nest of other birds and rely on those birds' parenting instincts to raise the cowbird chicks. The chick reaches behind for a spider offered by its adoptive father. The young cowbird is ignorant of its true nature and is acting purely on instinct and need. Emmy comments that the chick's unsavory origin is irrelevant, only its actions moving forward matter. The chick has one leg out of the nest, seeming about to fall out. Despite the security it provides, says it feels something calling to the wider world, whether it leaves the nest on purpose or by accident. The challenge is the same: fly or fall. The Fool in old decks often appears as a kind of crazy homeless man moving through the world. In modern ones, we see a beautiful young prince beginning the journey of the cards. Here we see something still deeper, pure instinct, the flow of energy that carries life forward. The Fool is both a hunger and an equally instinctive need to feed, to nurture, even if it's someone else's chick. In the distance, like a border between worlds, stands the Rocky Mountains. Looking east, the prairie seems to go on forever. To the west, the Rockies seem to erupt from nowhere, unexpected and dramatic. Okay, love this, right? I really love We have a great description of what's going on. What is the bird that we're looking at, right? Both birds. We know that this is a cowbird chick. We know this is an indigo bunting. We get a background as to why that is relevant to this card. And then with obviously Rachel Pollack's immense knowledge of tarot, we have a tap into older versions of this card, as well as modern interpretations, and then what is this card doing? Love that, absolutely. In such a small space, you don't have to go on for pages to be able to get that much information across. So I love that. It's amazing. This cardstock is that really soft, gorgeous matte. Powerful Magician. Woo. Consciousness, action, creation, the beginning, but also state of knowing. So I just want to peek here. The Magician traditionally stands with one arm raised, pointing at the range above, source of life and power. Here we see the raven spread his wings almost as a ladder between heaven and earth. Love, love, love it. The four suits are each held or touched by the raven magician. A peacock feather in his beak, an arrow in his claw, roots and overflowing horns before his down pointing. So you have all the elements. That's gorgeous. That's gorgeous. And I love, and maybe that's what this will end up being for me, is an amazing majors only deck. I think that it's mostly for me, the problem comes with the suits and the titles at the bottoms of them. Again, just that's a personal thing, but this is gorgeous. I really like what we're seeing here in the guidebook as well. So, okay, that gives us that idea. We can zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so then we have the beautiful High Priestess. I mean, her artwork is stunning. This is so gorgeous. Let's just peek. This is going to be one I'm going to have a hard time not peeking. The picture shows an Arctic snowy owl, her whiteness an adaptation to its environment. She holds an eagle feather in her mouth, a connection both to heaven and the magician before her. In fact, creative raven magician and silent owl high priestess are both opposites and partners. She stands upon a rippling veil that hides the half moon. Oh, beautiful. And this is what kind of breaks my heart, because I have looked at this deck many times, and I do just, the artwork is just so stunning. So stunning on it. High Priestess. Love this Empress. Love this Empress. This is one of the luscious, most joyous scenes in the deck. We see a red wolf mother and her pups, one feeding, the other resting, both secure in their mother's power. Oh, it's gorgeous. The different animals at play here. Just, it's lush, it's beautiful, it's Empress, it's a wolf, it's gorgeous. The Emperor is very powerful, with it looks what I would say is a reindeer or an elk. And again, I love that it's the description of what exact animal we're looking at, and why this might go in comparison to the Empress's lush woodland setting. There are no plants on this great. You normally see the king on a, more of a rocky throne, and then you see the lushness of the queen. So you can really see that between the two. Beautiful Hierophant. The original Hierophantos presided over the greater mysteries, held every 5 years in the small coastal town of Eleusis near Athens. I knew it's in Greece, because I actually just read an article about these greater mysteries. So that's really cool. I did not know that's where Hierophantus came from. But while he led the rituals, which lasted 9 days and had as many as 5,000 celebrants, the Hierophant was not really the focus. That belonged to the goddess Demeter, often associated with the Empress and her daughter Persephone, and Persephone's return from the land of the dead. With the rise of Christianity and the literal destruction of the sacred precinct at Eleusis, I'm sure I'm slaughtering that, Hierophant became the leader of secret cults, revealers of knowledge. It's worth noting that the older decks called the card the Pope, and the Popess. It's a peregrine falcon. Absolutely gorgeous. Here we have the beautiful Lover's card. two whooping creams dancing, and a human might assume they are fighting, but this is in fact a mating dance. This is love that is real and powerful and dangerous, because passion overwhelms cautious judgment and control. The male crane, which would be Adam in the traditional card, holds a fiery branch, while the female, which would be Eve in the Rider-Waite Smith, holds an apple with one foot, while a coral snake winds around her other. The coral snake is quite venomous, yet it exists peacefully with the bird, who is filled with her own untamed and exuberant passion. And then, of course, over the top of it, we have an eagle. So again, there's a great deliberate description of each one of the animals at play. It's gorgeous. Here we have the chariot. Now I just want to peek at all these to see. Magpie. Oh, love, strength with the bear, and what would be mother's protecting her cubs. Grizzly bear. Talks about some ritual. I mean, there's a lot of information. Two great horned owls fly behind her. Their color the same as her fur. They signify a spiritual inner strength that takes flight from the grounded earth to the spiritual heaven. I mean, I really love this little guidebook. Like, I'm going to definitely sit down and read this. The Hermit is stunning. I think we've all probably seen this image, and I mean, it's gorgeous. Love this Wheel of Fortune so much. So much. It's stunning. Absolutely stunning. I'm sure it's going to tell us what the spider is. Curiously, in the Marseille decks was the inner card featuring the animals. The bear turns to crank. Traditional image symbolic. Here we see the life conduction web of a garden spider, her yellow and black body brilliantly lit in the white light. The individual figures in the web represent the stages of life, but also the four elements. Together they show the life cycle of a single creature, a long-tailed skipper butterfly. So we're actually seeing the full cycle of it. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Justice. I do actually love the idea of a vulture in justice. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think it works gorgeously. Not quite the beautiful Justice Lady that we normally get to see, but I think that works really well. Here we have, for the Hanged One, would be a possum, I'm assuming. Brady Tarot Hanged One strongly represents, we see a mother possum hanging by her tail from a branch above a rushing river, symbol of the constant movement of life. Through attachment to the rooted values of the forest and the cycle of nature, she avoids being swept away. So fantastic. Look at that death. Look at that death card. That's gorgeous. Look at the card, and most likely the first thing you'll see is the human skull resting on the surface of the earth. It suggests that we might think of as a great age, for the flesh is decayed, even the teeth have rotted and fallen out, all but the gold molar. But much else is going on. From the empty eye sockets, a plant called pigweed has sprouted. Pigweed is a wild amaranth, an annoying weed to farmers but a blessing for foragers, for every part of it is edible. Tears seem to fall from the left socket. A western wood cockroach approaches the flow. Beneath it we can see a skull of Smilodon, a saber-toothed tiger. Long ago they were what the Emmy called an apex predator, top of the food chain. But when you go even further is a Tyrannosaurus Rex. That is pretty awesome. That's awesome. Here we have the beautiful Temperance. I love that there is a willow tree here at the base of the river. We have the Devil card. So let's see what we have here with the Devil. Not so much evil as wildness. Chaotic life energy sometimes expressed as indulgent. This can lead to self-destruction or addiction. Because this is a deck rooted in nature, the devil does not show some archetypal or supernatural evil. Instead, we see chaos and wildness, as if the powerful life energies realized in temperance have lost the sense of balance. Here we see an actual goat, though with 4 horns, as if the results of genetic mutation. He stands in a pile of carved human skulls, leaning against the tibia of an unknown ungulate or hoofed animal. Yeah, so a lot going on here. He is eating a vine that has psychotropic elements such as LSD. So it's just all of this. He's sexually aroused, but there's no way of procreating as in the natural world that's generally obviously used for. So we're just seeing the natural world in chaos is basically what we are seeing with this card, which works, I think, for the devil. Here we have the Tower card. I like that we don't have, you know, it's a dead tree here that's gone up in flames, which, you know, makes sense for this type of a deck versus all of a sudden there's a random tower here. So I like that. The beautiful Star card. Absolutely stunning. Absolutely. I mean, they're just gorgeous. Very Rider-Waite-Smith. Like you can, this is, to me, none of these majors are difficult to know what they're, oh, that's beautiful. Maybe one of my favorite suns. Like, that's stunning. Judgment. So this is interesting because that's such a human construct, right? The sun. Golden eagle is an actual bird, yet it symbolizes the divine. The eagle's cry awakens a cloud of little brown bats who fly up into the sky. Bats, of course, usually always come out at night, but the eagle has brought forth something new and powerful. Interesting there. And then the world card. I mean, these are stunning. Like, and I assumed that they would be stunning, right? There was nothing that led me to believe that these wouldn't. These, to me, are would be easy for anybody having a basic knowledge of tarot to be able to connect with the tarot meanings. I think they're just, you know, gorgeous and perfectly done. So yeah, really, really well done there, which is, again, what my expectation was. So you can see when you get to the minors, you have borders that are kind of based on their suits. So we have more red going on here with the feathers, which was fire. You have blue going on here with the horns. And then you have kind of orange tones. Although those could make you think, yeah, these are all solid red, where these are more yellow-orange tones in the earth suit here of roots, kind of brown tones that are there. So we're starting off with the one that I'm going to have probably the most problem with. Also the problem here is that we have, again, in quite large text, a descriptor. We don't have that in the majors, or we just have the name of it in the majors. So I do wish that they just had, you know, would produce a copy of this without those keywords on it. But this is somebody else's deck, and this is how they view these cards. And so it's not about whether something is good or bad, it's whether or not it's going to work for us. And for me, the keywords in here make this be a deck that I wouldn't necessarily use for clients, because I read the cards, some of these cards, differently, and that would hinder my reading. But if I was reading this for myself, that's what I would have to probably do with this deck. So we have the Ace of Arrows as truth, the Two of Arrows as armistice. So we have two creatures who are blindfolded and tied together with arrows in their side. So this is, you know, not a typical Two of Swords. So let's just take a look at how they read this. So that's the feathers. So let me go to the arrows. A moment of calm and peace in a tense situation. See, I don't see this looking overly calm. This can literally be between two adversaries or finding peace in yourself during great tension. How the people or person uses this moment is up to them. Will they go back to fighting or will they build up the armistice? For an individual, will she or he go back to struggling with life or find a way to tackle the problems? Does that make sense? Two animals, carnivores of different species. Oh, I thought they were the same, but it's actually a cougar and a gray wolf, each wounded by an arrow and tethered to a blindfold, nevertheless walk together in tandem. Normally these two compete for territory and prey, as Emmy puts it, yet here their ancient rivalry is set aside by common circumstance. In the whole suit of arrows, we cannot escape the fact that it is humans who are the common enemy. If we think of this card in terms of a relationship, as we can call with all tools, we might say the people who have been enemies find themselves bound together by a common danger or a joint challenge. What will they do if they overcome their problems, and how will they manage in the moment? So they can't let their heart rule, they can't let their head rule. They got to bring both those things together and work together. I mean, I can see that. Here we have again the Three of Swords in a what would be seen as a Rider-Waite-Smith meaning. For me, the Five of Cups has to do with loss and heartbreak and mourning. We don't need the swords, which is the suit of the mind, to depict that. So for me, the Three of Swords is growth, the number 3 of the mind, that comes from difficult circumstances, but it can also come from all kinds of experiences. But in terms of Rider-Waite-Smith, this makes sense. We often see the heart pierced into a heart of a person or something like that. I think people tend to find seeing animals pierced with things particularly difficult, more difficult than people. You know, this is what it is. Here we have the withdrawal of the Four of Arrows. This picture shows a greater Patoo, P-O-T-O-O, the largest of a family of birds called nightjars. The greater Patoo lives in tropical forests of Central America. They do not actually hide but blend into their surroundings. See how it looks like the bark of the tree? In the picture, the Patoo stands on a broken branch and elongates its body so that it appears part of the tree. It keeps its eye open just enough to know when the danger is past and it can move again. The elaborate Mayan arrows and their obsidian points and white downy feathers show that the attack is real, but the Patoo blends further into the setting by holding one of the arrows in its claws. So it's actually kind of tricking, and it's finding a way to withdraw from the battle, which is what we see the Four of Swords as. So he's not actually stabbed, he's actually making it appear as if it's gone through the wood to conceal or camouflage itself and keep itself safe. That's pretty cool. You know, this one is a hard one, right? So this is the 5. This is like, you know, this deck is for those people who can't deal with the horrible 10 of Swords in the Wild Unknown. You know, this is very similar, right? A true image of defeat. We notice first, of course, the 5 arrows piercing the polar bear's neck and side, but the bear is emaciated as well, suggesting it is already dying due to lack of food in a changing environment. And finally, it stands on a melting ice. Like, there's just no way out, right? This just definitely feels like complete defeat, and at what cost, right? To the, you know, really, what kind of honor is there in shooting a bear that's already in such difficult conditions? And so, you know, it brings across the Rider-Waite-Smith sense of winning, but at what cost? Like, is this really an honorable defeat? I would, of course, no. Here we have Passage with the 6 of Arrows. It's like a bird that's tethered to gloves, you know, for training birds of prey, but it's leaving the scene and taking the glove with it. Here we have Guile as the 7 of Swords. That's often seen as thievery in the Rider-Waite-Smith system. You know, it's pretty typical. They're stealing the arrows. We don't know why they're stealing the arrows. Is this going to help, you know, obviously for them to not get shot at? There's more going on than we know in the picture, and we have to think outside of just that snapshot. oppression in the 8. In this case, we have blue jays, which can be very loud and obnoxious at times, and be a little bit of bullies. If you have a bird seed, a bird feeder, you'll often see the blue jays being quite a bit obnoxious and bullying to other ones. But one of the delights of this deck is the way it gives the same careful attention to human artifacts that it does to the animals. Here it is actually leads to the central story of the card. The arrows, and especially the quiver, belong to a Wisconsin native people called Ho-Chunk. The Ho-Chunk people are known for the exquisite embroidery seen here in the nearly symmetrical design on the quiver. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. Yes, I'm like, what are we talking about? Yes, this is actually really beautiful. The use of the Ho-Chunk imagery is not arbitrary, for the tribe tells a fascinating creation story involving humans and squirrels. So, you know, it's amazing. But I really love this guidebook. I definitely want to sit down and talk about that. The image on the card depicts a form of behavior from blue jays known as mobbing. While blue jays are a cultural symbol of happiness in many countries, mobbing shows a darker, aggressive side. Bands of jay will attack a larger bird, often a predator, in this case a red-tailed hawk. The red-tailed hawk in this picture might go after a single jay, but when they come in a group, the hawk sits helplessly, or rather believes itself helpless. The Cherokee arrows struck more or less randomly in the branch symbolize the internal passivity and inability to act. This bird could get out of the situation if it wasn't letting itself sort of be mobbed down. So that, I think, works really well. Anguish for number 9, which would, you know, normally go with sort of the nightmare card, our worst fears. And for a mother eagle, this would be the worst fears here of her eggs having been broken. And then we have the finality of the 10 here in the 10 of Swords. This card alludes to the famous Rider-Waite-Smith 10 of Swords. Infamous, I would say, in which the man seems to lie dead with 10 swords sticking out of his back. Because of the overkill, only one sword will kill you, you don't need 10. And because the daylight appears under the black clouds, many have seen this card as an exaggeration, a kind of overwrought mental state. Things are not as they seem. Here we see a similar idea, but developed to satire, which is, somebody else pointed this out. This, if you look at this, this possum is not actually pierced. In agony, as she tries to pull 2 arrows from her chest. Moreover, the arrows are not uniform, but come from many different North American tribes. Everyone is out to get this poor possum. But when we look closer, we see none of the arrows have actually pierced her. 7 stick in the ground behind her, 1 lies next to her, and she holds 2 against her chest as if they've hurt her. But in fact, they haven't even cut the skin. The agonized face, the outstretched arm, they're all part of the act. When this card comes up, we might ask not just who is putting on an act, but who is the audience, the person or the people around her. Or just that sense of, I've just had enough. It's just way too much energy going on, right? So that's pretty funny. I do like that. Okay, so obviously this would have been, for me, the most difficult suit. This makes more sense. I mean, it's difficult here, but it makes sense. Obviously, we know how I feel about the 3 of Swords, but it makes sense to the Rider-Waite-Smith system. I really like the story of that. This is really sad, but I do think it does bring into that effect of really, like, that is a really discordant use of energy, and the cost of this on the person who would have shot a bear in this condition is far higher than what they're going to get out of that. I love that. I love that. I think this is actually a really great 8 of Swords. You know, I don't read the 9 of Swords, or this, I do read it as anguish, as that energy is so high that we are giving into our fears and or giving into all of our great ideas. So I've learned to work with that, and this one actually makes me smile. So Better than I expected. I think workable. Obviously, if you can't, if you don't want a deck that shows any kind of pain in an animal, then that's going to be a difficult suit for you in terms of this deck. I do kind of find it funny that people who can't have arrows in an animal can have a bloody person laying on the ground in the Ten of Swords. But some of the people who wouldn't like this deck also don't want their Ten of Swords to have a dead human either. So we all have to figure out what works for us and what doesn't work for us. Here we have the Daughter of Arrows in a sloth, Son of Arrows in a gorgeous fox. The Mother of Arrows in a lynx is gorgeous. And the Father of Arrows as it looks like some type of a vulture, which again I do think works. Black vulture. Yeah, I think that does work, and it kind of brings us back to the justice feel as well. So then we have inspiration for the Ace of Wands, or feathers, in this deck. We have success with the 2, successful planning. We have a vantage point so that we can see as our energy comes back to us in the Rider-Waite-Smith tradition. We have optimism in the 4 of feathers, or 4 of wands. We have rivalry, which makes sense, in the 5 of wands or feathers. We have victory in the 6 of wands. Makes sense. We have power in the 7 of wands, which I think is really beautiful. I quite like this. These would be buffaloes here. Let me get to the, these aren't in the order they're in, so let me, bison or buffalo, I suppose. I like that it even talks about like what are the feathers from. Like the feathers and the clouds are from golden eagles and prairie falcons, and why that might be. There's also feathers below that come from a spotted owl and a red-tailed hawk. So even, it's these are bison. 2 male bison charging each other, but even the actual feathers and what kind of feathers they are purposeful, and that to me is really powerful when there's that there. We have the swiftness of the 8 of feathers. This one, 8s for me aren't about speed, it's about stability. What I do like is that we have like a gopher or a groundhog here. No, it's a squirrel. What do I know? It is a squirrel, which to me is a very earthy energy. Like, he better be ready. Like, his feet need to be ready and ready to go, so that when this energy comes in, he can react well. So that's kind of how I work with, the swiftness factor, even though I don't see 8s as being about swiftness. We have conflict. Now, this is hilarious because I have recently, in the cabin that we're kind of doing a lot of work on the porch, we put 2 hummingbird feeders, and I have to tell you, I had no clue how territorial and feisty hummingbirds were. This makes a lot of sense now. And then here we have the 10 of wands or feathers, which is about a burden, that sense of a burden or heaviness of duty, but still usually being able to manage it. This is a female eastern wild turkey trying to fly while carrying a bunch of golden eagle feathers. Eagles, remember, symbolize spirituality and truth in the Brady Tarot. Thus, the turkey seems idealistic or in service to a higher truth. The problem is that she does not recognize her limitations, or she's going to be able to manage it, and she's going to be able to pull it out, which is generally how I read the 10 of feathers or wands. Daughter of Feathers, beautiful. The Son of Feathers, the Mother of Feathers, looks to be like a pheasant of some type, and the beautiful Father of Feathers. Gorgeous. Here we have joy for the Ace of Horns. Union for the Two of Horns. And of course, we know that each one of these are filled with details. The exact kind of bird, the type of horn, I'm assuming, are all there for a specific purpose. Three of Horns. The Four of Horns is apathy. Again, I don't read the Four of Cups that way. The Four is about stable emotions for me. However, if it sits long enough, it can turn into apathy. That just kind of, Rider-Waite-Smith tends to go straight to the shadow aspect. Five for loss. Five of Horns for loss. The Six for happiness. The Seven for breach. So that's interesting. Let's read that one. Despite the need to pay attention to a problem before it becomes a crisis, this is one of the most beautiful cards in the deck. The ladles, each one different, represent myths, fantasies, and big ideas. The first ladle, raven shaped, symbolizes daring feats and big ideas. See the Son of Feathers, where the raven steals the sun. The second shows a wolf, symbol of fear. The third displays a beaver carved into the candle, a connection to the dreaming beavers above. Poppies grow from it. Next come a sockeye salmon in its brilliant spring colors, symbol of sexual fantasies and obsessions. The fifth displays multiple eyes carved into the bottom with a northwest garden snake emerging from the bowl. Together, the eyes and the snake evoke esoteric knowledge and psychic abilities. Then there's one shaped like a loon, floating over the water, a fantasy of effortless control of our lives. Finally, a frog and two salamanders jump from the bottom ladle, symbolizing a fantasy of escape, an ability to just get out of our problems. All of this may seem delightful, but in fact, beavers need to maintain their dams. Water leaks from the three weak points at the top and becomes stronger as it goes along. The beavers need to wake up and protect what they have made. Figure out what it is, how can they pick the right thing and kind of stop the rest of these leaks by leaning into like illusions where we're wasting our energy. I think that actually works really well. Departure for the Eight of Horns is perfect. Fulfillment with the Nine of Cups, wish fulfillment, and overflowing with the 10. I think that's gorgeous. And again, really evokes the Rider-Waite-Smith symbology. Daughter of Horns, it's gorgeous. Son of Horns, Mother of Horns, and Father of Horns. Really beautiful. That suits, I think, really, again, well done. I love the term enchantment for the roots. I quite like that for Earth. Equilibrium with the 2. Work with the 3. Preservation with the 4. I love that. Actually, far better than I would have expected. There's not the greediness here. It's preserving. It's time to hold your energy in. I love that. Scarcity with the 5. Difficult to see. Altruism with the 6, makes sense. Growth with the 7, again, makes sense. Discipline with the 8, which makes sense. Accomplishment of the 9s, and then wealth of the 10s. Really fantastic. And then, of course, we have the adorable Daughter of Roots. That's probably my favorite. Son of Roots down there hibernating. The Mother of Roots tending her hive. And the Father of Roots with that, the nose, star nose mole or something like that. That is going to be just completely at one with its environment. Really gorgeous. I have to say, you know, the ones that I expected would obviously be different than the way that I read, are the ones that I expected, right? And so no real surprise there. It just comes from this just not being my core system. Shuffle's gorgeous. A little bit hard to push in with that yummy matte-ness. It's that kind of like that rose metal matte. I don't know if the new edition has a different cardstock. Again, you'll have to do the work for that to figure out that kind of information. It's thick cardstock. It's a little bit hard to shuffle, kind of like shuffling the Wild Unknown, which is, again, many people love. But as a riffle shuffler, it's got a bit of a resistance, but still riffles well. You just have to kind of work it. And I'm guessing it would ease in. It does do a good shuffle, though, which is important. So really beautiful cardstock. I think overhand shufflers will absolutely love it. People who are riffle shufflers are probably groan a little bit, but still enjoy the tactile sensation of it. Let's get some more shuffles in there so that it's really good. So I see myself using this, actually. I didn't know if I would ever, if I would really see myself using it. I could certainly use this for myself. It's, again, I love animal-based decks. I use them in my ancestor space, in more of my nature space. I could see using this in conjunction with my Weaver's Oracle that is, not pulling any punches, like in my web reading. So I do actually see ways in which I would use this. My difficulty with using it with clients is just because of some of those swords cards. It would just be having to say, yeah, I know what it says, but that's true, but also look at it this way, which I do all the time, but I try to have it not be so far from center of how I interpret the cards. Love that. I mean, I love the Major Arcana. Okay, so Major Arcana is going to come into play. Look at how beautiful that is. You could, I'm sure people will be horrified for me to say this, but I'm sure somebody, I'm going to have to look, because personally I would be inclined to probably trim this because it would just be so earthy and good, gorgeous, right? Just depends on how, you have to decide, you're going to trim from here, and then does that, evenly match up to the other. I'm definitely tempted. I'm definitely tempted to go see what other people have, other people who may have already done it, but it's gorgeous. I think that the people who are going to have problems with this is if you don't read Rider-Waite-Smith, or if you have a problem with some of the difficult cards depicting animals in painful situations. That might be too hard for you to work with the imagery there. But otherwise, if you read traditionally with Rider-Waite-Smith, I think this is really clear about that. I also think the gold mine is here. Like, there is nothing random done here. It is beautifully intentional, and that intentionality is given to us in the guidebook. This makes me want to work with this deck closely because of this guidebook, because there is a reason for everything that's here, to the different types of feathers, to the different Native American peoples, from the different feathers and arrows and things. Like, everything has a purpose, and that is a lot of work, and that is a lot of intentionality, and I have a lot of respect for all of that work, and then for sharing that with us so that we can tap into that information as well. So I know I'm going to be spending some time with this deck, and yes, the images are gorgeous, hands down, but this book definitely makes me want to dive into this even more. So, kudos to the creator and Rachel Pollack, combination together of really of making such a small booklet be so powerful. So yeah, fantastic there. Okay, I hope that this has helped you if you've been interested in this deck like I have. I definitely want to thank Miss Jamie who sent me her copy of this, because I would never have purchased this deck, just because I felt like, it's hard for me to purchase a deck, especially an independent one, when I don't think that I would use it with clients. And so, I kind of sometimes use that as my rule of thumb, even though it's an animal deck, which I want all the animal decks. So I probably would never have, I know I would never have purchased this. And I'm really glad to be able to have the experience of looking at it and really seeing what this artist and creator of this deck has done. Okay, talk to you later.